Farms are the fabric of Massachusetts and a key part of our heritage. We have a wide array of farming operations in the state of Massachusetts, and that's what makes the state so special. For me, growing up on a farm, I associate it with family and the time where I spent the most with my family growing up. And so for me, farms really are what unite us all, and we have the common bond in that farms are what feed us and nourish us every day.
There have been farms in North Andover since about 1642. We now sit in a period where the number of remaining farms is rapidly declining. It is increasingly important to capture stories of these farms and the families who have stewarded over them. The history of these farms is the legacy of our town. The fertile shores and surrounding area of the Great Pond have been feeding families for generations. Change has come and conquered, but agriculture is still vital and farmers are still present. This project is now over a decade in the making. Let's now go back to 2012 and hear from Michael Smolak, owner of Smolak Farms here in North Andover, about the original vision for this project when it was first undertaken.
Now you might ask, why are we doing this? And the answer is quite simple. Too often we've seen farms disappear from our landscape, and we can't stop progress, but what we can do is try and capture that which has been here for quite a few years. There's very little of our farm agricultural legacy left in North Andover. There are a few very active farms, and unfortunately seem to be less and less as the years go by. I have an attachment that goes far deeper than just the land, and that extends to the men and the women and children and farm families that have been farming these agricultural lands since 1642 or thereabouts. When we started this project, our intention was to preserve this legacy. Well, we're doing this so that future generations can appreciate and see where we come from. You know, too often we're not mindful enough in this country of where we've come from. And when we lose sight of the fact of where we've started, then we tend to lose the direction of where we should be going.
We had really quite a variety.
A little bit of sweet corn.
Oh, just a little bit. I'll never forget, like, we were so proud of it. I think that Tommy said that one Sunday we sold 32 bushels of corn by the dozens. Now that's a lot of corn.
That's a lot of corn.
That's a lot of corn. But we were fussy about our corn, you know, like, we didn't cozy to people stripping it down. Like, we always made a point to open it up to see if there was a little worm. But, you know, like, it makes a difference if you know how to open it than just stripping it down.
What I remember from the beginning of the farm, it was a third dairy, a third apples and peaches, and then a third truck. So we would grow tomatoes, cucumbers, squash, a lot of sweet corn, beets, carrots, cabbage, butternut squash. In those days, they didn't have herbicides. We had to weed everything by hand. So the whole family, all of us, would be out in the fields, would each take a row with the hoe. That's what we did every day. It seems like we weeded. And then we had about 6,000 tomato plants that we took a lot of care of. We had to tie them up and we had to keep pruning them. And when it was time to harvest the vegetables, we'd all go out and work together. And I remember when I was a little girl, I would just watch, because I certainly didn't help then, I was too young. But my grandfather always took me with him to go deliver the produce. We would go to Paisley's, and at Benson's, the grandmother would have a little vegetable stand then too, because before 495, 133 was the route for the beach. So all the stands there, you know, got a lot of business. But whenever I was with my grandfather, no matter what time of the day it was, we'd stop and we'd get a vanilla ice cream with Jimmy's on it. So that was a real treat for me to go anywhere with them. When you think about it, how did 3 generations live so well together? I mean, sure, we had our differences and there were arguing and bickering. We didn't always agree, but we were so together. It was just, when I think back, what a wonderful, wonderful way for myself to grow up. And I'm sorry, kids don't have that opportunity anymore to grow up in a multi-generational household like this where we all work together and we had a common goal. I am so happy I can bring my grandchildren down here and say that this is our farm, this is what it's like. And it never could have started without the influence of my grandmother and grandfather. How clever and bright and resourceful they were to be able to come from a foreign country, come to this country and build something like this. I would think it would be extremely difficult to do something like that today. I just don't think it would happen.
When Tommy went to agricultural school, his teacher, Mr. Wood, told him, he said, because my father-in-law used to wholesale everything, and Mr. Wood said to Tommy, why don't you put a stand up and start retailing? Right. And so my husband said, but we're out on a country road. People aren't going to come to the farm. He said, no, people want to go to the farm. And that was true, because once we started, the word spread. We never advertised or anything, it was just word of mouth. We had people coming once a week from Boston, Lynn, from all over just to get a week's supply of fresh vegetables. We had the same customers all the time. We just sold the fresh stuff. We'd work all day in the stand. At night, we'd come here, and like Tommy and John used to help, like the relish, you have to grind it at night and put the hot water, and then let it stay overnight, and then drain it and cook it in the morning. So they used to help us grind all the peppers and the onions, and you know, the people used to buy them a dozen at a time, but then it just got to be too much. You know, we had to give that up. Because, you know, we were 7 days at the stand, 7 days a week, and we'd close usually around 6 at night. But people know that I lived here. They'd come to the door. Oh, I need a dozen of corn. Would you mind? What could you say? Our customers, you know, 99% of them were wonderful. They really were.
Well, they became family in a way, didn't they?
They did, because we got them all and you know, we were like psychologists. They'd come and tell you their troubles, and you'd listen. And like my husband, everyone dumped on him. He just had a way about him that they'd confide in him.
But there is a lot of satisfaction, really. And it is, I don't know, there's something about dealing with nature, and it's just a feeling that I think some people don't have and don't appreciate. They don't know what you're talking about. But you talk about, like, what you do in your leisure time. If I had a break during the day, sometimes I'd jump over the stone wall in the woods and just lie on the moss, watch the rabbits run by, and I was just as happy as I could be. And I don't think kids today can appreciate that, but when you've dealt with nature and you feel close to it, you have this certain communication with it, that it's a different feeling. It's wonderful, too. I wish everybody could experience it, actually.
Sometimes when we were younger, the cows actually came before the family, because that was how we survived, was because of them. And if you didn't take care of the cows, you had no food, you wouldn't have a roof over your head or clothes on your back.
It was quite the farming community back in the 40s and 50s, it really was. There were 9 dairy farms operating when I had my dairy farm, 9. And now there's 4 left in the entire county. So it just shows you how it's changed. The farm part of it, it doesn't make a lot of money. You put in long hours. It's hard work, and it's just that you have to have a love for it.
I don't think it was until he was 70 years old, 75, before his full-time hired help left. And he couldn't get somebody else to stay and live there. Nobody wanted to work on the farm. But that wasn't the way to go anymore.
There was a lot of direct from farm to the public in those days. And plus there were not the highways. And so this route,
this was a main route to the beach.
You know, the Chadwicks, the Holds, us, Rogers was there and he came out. Sid Chadwick had a stand down there. It was just like little farms all over the place, and everybody trying to make a little living at it. And that's gone. Never come back.
The decrease in the average farm size in Massachusetts has slowed in the 2000s, but at 66 acres, it is at half of the peak of 134 acres in 1974. The number of farms in Massachusetts has dramatically decreased over the years. It reached its peak at 370,000 farms in 1945 and now sits at 7,083 in 2022. In North Andover, only about a quarter of the peak total agricultural properties are remaining in 2025.
I think what's difficult is that currently we only have about 5% agricultural land left in North Andover, 854 acres total, right? And it's 123 parcels. But only 128 of those are actually protected under 61A.
Chapter 61A is a program through the state to encourage and support and maintain active agricultural uses on properties in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It allows cities and towns to apply more favorable tax rates to local agricultural properties that are actively using the land for farming purposes.
So I think that that's something that we need to start thinking about as we move forward. How do we continue to protect those parcels? How do we have those restrictions go on forever?
There are more farmers in Massachusetts who are over 75 years old than farmers between 35 and 44 years old. The average age of a Massachusetts farmer is currently 58.7 years old, and it has increased dramatically since the beginning of the 2000s.
We do have an aging population, and farms will transfer in the next 5 to 10 years at a significant level.
One farm that has been here through all of these challenges over the years is Barker Farm.
I believe now we have the oldest continually run family farm in the whole country. And I think that is just incredible. And how lucky we are that it is still there, and that of course is Barker Farm.
The Barkers traced their farming legacy in North Andover back to 1642, and their family has been involved in the history of our region ever since.
Well, I think Dottie and I farmed in the best possible time to be farmers. She was great with the help picking beans and strawberries and everything. And before that, it was nothing but hard labor. And after that, it was a lot easier to do the work and get it done. And now, there's just things are just too expensive. Everything you do is too expensive. Well, at one time I had 3 very economically unfulfilling years in a row. That one made me kind of discouraged. But I never applied seriously for a job. So I continued to farm and things improved seriously. So we were able to actually get along as farmers.
And as I remember, I strongly mentioned that I would prefer him to stay on the farm.
I was president of Essex Farm Bureau twice, and it's a good organization. I respect Farm Bureau very much. Well, it's an organization to help the legislature know what is good for farmers and convince them to promote farm bills that will help us, and they have done that very much with 61A and the preservation bill. Well, I certainly promoted it, but with the farm split up by roads, I never considered going into it, and I never reached the point where I needed to, thankfully. But it certainly helped preserve a lot of farms. There's one subsidy that I believe was very worthwhile. Milk production is a little different from grain or anything because you make decisions from year to year. With the cows, you have to, or in those days at least, you had to look ahead 2, 3, or even 4 years to increase production or reduce production. But the problem with the milk industry is that farmers, I think, if the price is good, they add more cows, and if the price isn't good, you add more cows because you have to make more money, so you have to produce more milk. And New England, at one time, was taking care of itself. And when they eliminated the, I don't know what they called them, but sections of the country, there was 5 or 6 sections that each had their own price. And when they combined it all, it was the ruination of dairy industry in New England.
As a kid, we'd pick in the morning, and then we couldn't wait to get done with our chores, and then we'd just go to the beach sometimes. Diane and I would go to the beach, and we'd just so look forward to that. But now, I don't want to go to the beach, I'd rather weed. I have a picture of me as a kid weeding Mom's garden. I hated weeding, and I fell asleep. Fell asleep drawing pictures in the dirt. I don't do that anymore because I really enjoy weeding. So my love of flowers came from both sides of the family. I remember your mother growing bachelor buttons, and I love those. Those are some of the
Nasturtiums.
earliest. And nasturtiums. And
wake up at 8 o'clock every morning during the summer. We pick for about 4 hours. It varies depending on the day. And we have a crew of about maybe 10 to 15 kids my age, and pick one through the day while it's the coolest, and it's great working with my grandfather. And afterwards we deliver it, and it's amazing how the workers develop as friends during the summer, and because we go through everything, the weather, we can be picking corn in thunderstorms one morning, and next day it'll be 100 degrees, and it's always 20 degrees hotter in the cornfield.
I think Dad always made it interesting to want to help. He always had enthusiasm, and he sort of just really, come on, we're gonna go do this. We're gonna go plant strawberries, or we're gonna go plant onions, or whatever. And he always said it with such enthusiasm. It was kind of automatically just kind of wanted to go.
Other farms in North Andover are taking on the challenge of continuing their legacy alongside the Barkers. When the traditional farming models weren't working for them, they innovated and are working to create blueprints for farms to not only survive, but thrive in our current day.
I think some of them survive.
They'll also, always they'll survive.
But what you had to do, Mike, was...
Right, you gotta go with the times.
Do other things.
Yeah.
And even the Barkers have got mulch and different things, and if you don't branch out, it's impossible.
Right.
You talked about picking beans. You know how long it took to pick a bushel? If you sold them $10 a pound, you might break even, and you can't.
Right.
And so they did stuff, because I just helped in the summer because I taught, but we'd do stuff, and if we cleared $2, $3 an hour, we thought we were doing great. And nobody would work for those kinds of wages. So that kind of farm only existed if it was a family farm, and people didn't really care about how many hours they put in, and they didn't keep track of. And even at that, at the end, even though they were being paid practically nothing, the price of everything had gone up so much that they were paying so much out, and they were lucky that they weren't losing by the end of the season, you know, not even counting the wages.
Right.
But I think it will survive because people diversify, they start doing other things, they combine it with something else.
I was brought back to North Andover because of the beauty, the history, the community, the people. The winery is a product of the property. I looked at this property once I bought it, and I was like, okay, what am I gonna do with this? And it needs to continue as a farm. And so I needed to have a farm product. And I looked at other business models, and I said, all right, like with this a little bit over 5-acre property, lots of buildings, it's gotta be very quaint, it's gotta be really beautiful. And I felt like wine is the right type of product to have people, invite people here. I think that there's an argument to say that we could take our model and use it to save other farms in our region, because again, as we talked about, it's really, really hard to keep a farm going, you know, with the cost of living and property taxes and labor and all of that. With wine, we have an amazing wine club. And so that's where we're creating a community of people that really love what we do, want to be a part of it, and they're all local people. They're all people that live and work in this area. And then the other thing that we have is we have guest houses. And so we have 3 guest houses, and you know, we only offer that for overnight stays, which means that we're the alternative to a hotel. We're starting to use these buildings in different ways to host different types of events and experiences. And so we think that those 3 areas are really helpful and valuable to keep our property and our farm to be really successful. And you know, and I think that model could work for other farms as well.
We have 2 primary focuses at our department, which is the marketing and promotion for farms, as well as the regulatory side. One of the things I'm really proud of that Massachusetts is known for and has had programs for over 40 years around is the Agricultural Preservation Restriction Program. It was the first program of its kind in the country, and the program has certainly had changes made to it through the years, but at the heart of it, it's to be able to protect land in perpetuity for agricultural purposes. And as we see more development pressures, whether it's housing development, renewable energy, and urbanization, we recognize that the land in the state is lost forever. And typically once land goes into development, it doesn't come back into agriculture. And so the APR program has been a great way to help farms, not only existing farms, but new and beginning farmers. We now have a joint committee on agriculture in the state, which last session was just established to show and recognize the importance of agriculture, which I think is a tremendous opportunity to be able to highlight what the challenges are, and then through policy change, how we can best support our farms. Farmers in Massachusetts are very resilient, and I will say that with climate change and changing markets, many of the farms have diversified. And agritourism is one example that has been incredibly successful over the last 10, 20 years in Massachusetts, and a way to connect with the 7 million consumers that we have in the state. So for those farms that have invested in agritourism and recognize that that's a new marketing channel, that has been one way. In addition, many farms are looking at season extension opportunities and leveraging grant opportunities to put in more greenhouses or indoor grow facilities. And we've seen in the last 10 years an expansion of hydroponic growing and more farms going into that direction, or companies wanting to set up shop in Massachusetts and start their companies here because of the innovation side as well and the science. But I think the diversification piece is really key, because years ago when you would focus on butternut squash or sweet corn or a single crop, unfortunately now, if you do that, you can lose the crop in one day and your entire season is over. And back in 2023, we had 3 extreme weather events. And I was thinking about this the other day when it was snowing at my house in March, end of March. We had a very short maple season this year. And so I was thinking about 2023 when we had a February 4th freeze, May 18th frost event, and then we had flooding throughout the summer. And all varieties of farms, from cranberries to maple to vegetable, fruit, were impacted. We didn't have a peach crop that year, and it was devastating. And so I think as we look at how that year really changed our agricultural perspective, and for new and beginning farmers coming into Massachusetts and just starting up, it was devastating. But it also gave us an opportunity at the department to think about those long-term investments, whether it's irrigation systems and wells or greenhouses to help prevent against these weather extremes.
It's been interesting to watch the community change and evolve, even in the short period of time that I've been here. But I've never worked in a community that had so much respect for its land, that's been so visionary in making sure that it continues to hold those values so steadfast through our work through CPC, through our agricultural restrictions, and really just through smart growth. I think we've done a pretty good job of trying to keep North Andover in the way that it's always been for everyone, right? And I think the farms are such a huge, important part of that. I mean, they've become a destination in our community. We have people who have their graduation parties at farms, who have their weddings at farms, their bar mitzvahs. We have people who go there on the weekend with their families. And it's also become a real tourist destination for people that are outside of the Merrimack Valley. I mean, the number of people who come in to go to smaller farms or Boston Hill farms to apple pick or pick strawberries or just to see the animals, I mean, I think that it's become a draw for our community. One of the ways that we make sure that happens is by continuing our open space plan. And so in 2025, we updated that plan, really started that work back in 2023, and make sure that those parcels are really prioritized. We have the Master Plan Implementation Committee, which has done an amazing job with Andrew Shapiro of implementing all the different items that are suggested in our master plan.
So our open space and recreation plan does examine what properties would be strategically wise for the town to preserve now and into the future. And really those properties are mainly ones that are around Lake Ochigwick. They're properties that if we acquired, we would be better protecting our watershed now and in the future from development and from anything that could harm or threaten our water supply. Those are the main priorities we have with respect to maintaining our open space. Certainly we also enjoy the right of first refusal, on properties that are agricultural properties, ones that are in the Chapter 61A program. I think it's a big reason why many people move here. They enjoy the scenic vistas, they enjoy the recreational open spaces, they love the fact that we have working agricultural properties in town. And I think it's also a point of pride for people who have lived here for several years and why they want to stay living here.
One of the things that we're really lucky to have here in town is the Community Preservation Act, and we're able to leverage those funds to really do a lot of good work. And some of those have been used on farmland, right? We've had the Tom Farm, we had Windrush Farm, which was protected with the CR through conservation restriction, through CPA, Mazurenko Farm, that also had CPC funds that were used for that. So I think continuing to leverage that, but one of the things that I think is really important is making sure that the town is prepared when a farm does decide they want to sell. We talk a lot about the best possible use of a property, right? And that's not always the value that's going to come from taxes. You know, sometimes that's maintaining vista, or preserving history, or making certain that that character of the town in that area stays the same because it's something that people value in the community. And so when we try to balance that, and we recognize the need for increased taxes, and we recognize the need for businesses that the community needs in order to prosper, and we recognize the need for housing for people who want to age in place or who would like to come back to North Andover to live. But we work really hard to balance that, because it's true, once we lose a farm, we don't see a lot of new farms coming into fruition. You might see a rooftop urban farm, but you don't see people going from an industrial site to a farming site. And so we want to make sure that we're doing a really good job of understanding where we want those farms to stay and using our tools that we have available to us to keep them that way.
I see the future of Massachusetts agriculture being very bright. I'm optimistic. I typically always have a half full approach with life. The glass is always half full. And I do think that there's a lot of interest by new and beginning farmers, and they see New England as an attractive destination to join agriculture because of the diversification, the grant programs and the technical assistance that can be provided, as well as an administration and government, as well as legislature that supports farms and has made it a priority.
This is a marvelous project for a whole lot of reasons. It does record information about a period in history, a period in time.
They were always talking about what it was like growing up in the Depression. I think that they were trying to, drive it into our heads, about needing to, needing to save and not be wasteful and preserve things.
In the 60s, I really enjoyed that a lot. Keeping a few cows at home, working with the Celestes and the Cosdrasses. I think that was the time that I was really optimistic, and I thought I could, really do well with the farming bit. The 70s were very good, working at Small Axe, then moving on to the dairy bit on my own. I really, I think that was the high point, the 70s.
The other not insignificant side benefit is having people be cognizant of their history.
As my generation would go, it's like you should be very fortunate to have the opportunity to have worked with a family business. Sometimes you say, gee whiz, I really don't want to do this and this, that, and the other, but you do it because it's part of the family, it's what you have to do. Even when I used to have a regular job, in the afternoon when I used to come out, I used to help on the stand. But it's a part of your life that you'll never forget.
My father definitely loved it. He found that farming was his passion. This is what he wanted to do. He loved working the fields. He loved seeing what was growing in the fields after he had worked them.
It's the old farmer, you plant the seed. You plant the seed and you sort of see if it takes root. And the end product is fine and that's all great and good, but the fun is the journey.
You can be a part of this project. If you have any artifacts, images, or stories from any of North Andover's farm properties, please contact the North Andover Historical Society. We would like to take a moment to recognize those featured in this episode who are no longer with us.